All right, very good. Thank you. So I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting open for September 15th, 2020. The first order of business is 7 o'clock is alteration of premises application, Angelita's Restaurant. I do believe this is going to be continued, and I don't see any representation. So is that a fair assessment, Mr. Montori?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I take that as a yes. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just take a quick vote? And because it's virtual, we have to do a roll call vote. I wish we could just go yay or nay. So I'm setting it right now. So why don't we just take a quick vote to table it, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table the alteration of premises application for Angelina's Restaurant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, so I'll have to do a roll call. Let's start with Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Mark Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Swellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Okay, our next scheduled appointment is 7:05. We'll get there. We have a couple more minutes, but Mr. Montori, we figured it'd be a little bit swift tonight and jump down to town manager. There's a couple of different invoices, so we'd like to run through those, please.
Sure. First is Senior Town Council's invoice for July 2020 in the amount of $8,818.83, and I would approve.
Mr. Chairman? Yep. I'll
I
second.
have a motion and I have a second. Roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Jane Wellman.
I
Aye.
lost everybody.
We hear you.
The chair votes aye as well. We have you, Mr. Montori.
Nope, I'm back. You hear me?
Yes.
Yep, you're good. We just we did a roll call vote, so we approved the Senior Town Council invoice.
Okay. And then Town Council, we have two invoices, one for July 16th through July 31st in the amount of $2,932.50. Recommend approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman?
Promotion.
Second.
I have a second. So roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Last but not least, Mr. Montori.
And then there's last Town Council invoice from August 1st to August 25th in the amount of $2,550, and I would recommend approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Kratman. Second by Ms. Wellman. Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, and that brings us to 7:05. So it's on our agenda. We have the school reopening update. I don't even know how to start. With Mr. Malone, thank you very much, and Mr. Keith Sullivan, thank you guys for joining. What you guys have done in the last X amount of months has just been absolutely just incredible. I got a lot of static. I'm going to ask if you're not speak. Thank you. So I just can't thank you guys enough. So since you guys have been working a gazillion hours over the last X amount of months, I figured we'll keep this nice, short, and sweet. Maybe kind of just do a quick intro because I think the big day is tomorrow, and then maybe we'll open it up to the board, maybe for just one question or two, because we want you guys to get a good night's sleep tonight. That's all. But again, I just want to start out. The work that you guys have put in, the hours, the commitment, it's just been absolutely incredible. I think, Mr. Sullivan, you said it right. You try to be so open and honest and fair to the community and solicit feedback. And I always say, if you ask 100 people what radio station you like, you're going to get a bunch of different answers. But you guys took the consensus, worked together, and at the end of the day, you had to make a decision. So I commend you guys. I can't thank you guys enough on behalf of the board, the residents alike. I have a senior too, so you guys did a good job. So maybe you want to just preference quick 5 minutes. Like I said, I want to keep you forever, and then we'll just open it up to the board maybe for a question or two.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman and members. Thanks for the opportunity. Obviously, it's always important for us to be able to update not only you guys, but the community as well. And this is a good opportunity. I'm going to give somewhat of a brief synopsis and kind of leave the details in with Mr. Malone. And certainly we're open to any questions, but certainly I think it's going to give the community, the people that haven't maybe paid such close attention, an idea of how we got here. So I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank not only the entire Board of Selectmen, but the town manager for your continued and ongoing dedication and support to our schools, as well as your dedication and willingness to provide the support and the resources necessary to put together a town-wide task force that we made a priority early in the summer. That certainly helped us navigate some of this. Originally, for those that aren't aware, DESI's original task was basically try to negotiate these 3 plans and focus on an all-in-person plan. When the numbers went up, it didn't look like it wasn't going to go that way. Certainly having that task force, having that input, we were obviously looking at things compelling and competing interest for good reason, right? If the window's open, that's good for airflow. The nurse likes that. Maybe the chief of police doesn't like that for security, or fire doesn't like it for draft. So certainly getting that input, having Board of Health people on that town-wide task force, having the town manager, having teachers, having other people within the staff, prioritizing having 3 residents and others as well was certainly very helpful for us. So I just wanted to add thank you. We certainly couldn't have done that without the town support, and obviously that starts right here with you guys. So as a school district, we also focused on and prioritized, as you said, Mr. Kelly, getting input from all our stakeholders. That was really important. Our parents, our teachers, our staff, that included doing surveys. Countless meetings, meeting in small groups via email, even social media at sometimes. Some other meetings we had with some specific groups, we were able to facilitate that and get input that way as well. So the district leadership team was also instrumental. They did a lot of work, quite honestly, that I'm maybe not so privy to, that the superintendent can speak to. But they did stuff over the summer. It culminated, I think, with a workshop that we had between the school committee, the district leadership team, and the townwide task force that kind of ultimately steered us in the direction that we went to take that vote to start in a hybrid model. I want to be very clear with that. Our goal and our focus is still in to get all in-person instruction, and we also have a remote learning academy that Mr. Malone will speak further to for parents and families that just don't, they're not ready to send in person yet. So that was important. Something else that was critical for us was we could have the best laid plan in the world. If we didn't have buy-in from our staff, it really was for, wouldn't be for much. So I can't thank and applaud the union and the teachers enough for really getting together. And we started negotiations in July. I know some people felt frustrated. I know some people went out in the community and said things that I know weren't correct. But man, I think we really did a good job, narrowing down the focus and realizing, we all want to do what's best for our students. We certainly do that every day as a district and a school committee. And I can tell you the teachers and the Teachers Association certainly did that as well. Last Tuesday, we were able to reach a very good memorandum of agreement. A lot of towns don't have that. We're going to have happy and healthy and safe teachers. They voted overwhelmingly late Thursday night, I've been told, to go back into the school. So obviously, that kind of positive attitude and that kind of collaboration is only going to help our kids when they get back in the classroom. So make no mistake about it, we have a lot of work left to do. The hybrid plan, as I said, is just the start. And for those families who chose, the remote learning academy, we are going to have some, the curriculum in alignment that's going to kind of parallel what's going on in the schools. Obviously, we're going to staff that. Now that we have an MOA, we want to staff that with Tewksbury teachers. We want kids that already feel comfortable having teachers in the building, teaching them even if they're not in the building. That was a very important thing to us. So, that's kind of where we're at. I'll briefly go over the hybrid plan, just kind of layman's terms here. So for anyone that's listening, can get it. As I said, after the fact, Mr. Malone, I'm sure, can add context to the Remote Learning Academy, and also the cohort C, which are our highest need students. And I'm sure he'll answer any questions that you have. So basically, what we ended up doing was a in-person model with a 4-hour instruction day. It's not a half day. It's 4 hours in-person instruction. So they took the makeup of the school and they cut it up by the alphabet and created 2 cohorts, an A cohort and a B cohort. So, for instance, tomorrow on Wednesday, I'll just start with Wednesday. It's the first day of school. Mr. Kelly, you and I might be in the same class. You're in the A, I'm in the B. We're all together on Wednesday in the cohort being taught remotely, as that's going to be a cleaning day. It's going to be an opportunity for us to get in there and maybe, do some deep cleaning where necessary. On Thursday and Friday, the B cohort is going to go in person for that 4 hours of instruction. Now, the teachers will be in the class all day long. After the 4 hours, the kids will grab a lunch and go. And the A cohort, so if you're in person, Mr. Kelly, and you're in the B and I'm in the A, I'm doing some kind of synchronous learning plan through the teacher. Like I said, that's more for Mr. Malone, the actual context of that. But there's going to be synchronous learning. There's asynchronous learning opportunities as well for those younger students. And those are just fancy terms, Jay. Synchronous just means I could be teaching and you're in the classroom and someone's watching at home. And the asynchronous is for maybe a younger student that can't necessarily get on the computer. And when that parent comes home, or maybe a sibling or a loved one or someone can come over and help them and they can get that lesson. So that's Thursday, Friday. When it swings to Monday, Tuesday, it just gets flipped around. The A cohort will go in. They'll get their 4 hours in person. As I said, the teachers will be in person all day. They'll get the lunch and go. The B cohort will be in some kind of synchronous learning plan, and then they'll all be together in the afternoon on a remote part of it. So that's kind of the nuts and the bolts. There is a C cohort, like I said, that I know Mr. Malone's going to speak to. Those are our high need students that are getting 4 days, and that criteria has been set by DESE. So that's kind of what I had for a brief overview. If you have any questions on that, I'll certainly take them at this time. Or if you would like Mr. Malone to go, that's fine too. You can do it any way you want, Mr. Chairman.
What if we go with Mr. Malone? Let's go to Mr. Malone, and then we'll kind of just level set and see what questions you have. So thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you to the entire board for this opportunity. A particular thank you to Mr. Montori, who's been a great support. He's been part of the reopening task force, along with Board of Health personnel, Chief of Police, Fire Chief. Without their help navigating a lot of this, certainly we would be behind the 8 ball. And just a reminder to the board, kind of a couple things to consider in context. As we went full remote last March as a district, as the entire state did, that was a mandate out of the governor's office. And if people remember back, there was about a 3-week gap where there was no school in March. There was no education. That transitioned to a DESE mandate around enrichment that lasted approximately 6 weeks. And then the final 6 weeks of schooling in the spring were around what we refer to as power standards. So what we learned from that process is that although we have the technical capability to do remote learning, certainly as a state, but more specifically as a district, we needed to have a more robust interaction with students in a remote setting if that was going to have a strong educational component that went along with it. We've done a lot of work on that. Up through the summertime, all districts in the state were told that the decision would be a state level decision about what model we would be returning to school in, that we would be preparing for all students returning or remote. on or about mid-July, July 17th. That changed a little bit. A third model was introduced, which was the hybrid model. And also from the governor's office, it was determined that school districts themselves would actually determine which model they would open up in. So we had been planning on the different models, which is great. What we did not plan on or did not have our foot on the ground with was that this was actually going to be a local decision. So we immediately worked to work with stakeholders, develop the task force, and begin a series of surveys and feedback and opportunities for input from staff, from students, from parents, and from community members to try to guide us on this piece while we continue to watch the metrics that are available out there, both at the state level and the local level, about the trajectory of this pandemic. Where we're at today is opening in a hybrid model. As Mr. Sullivan, the chair of the school committee, mentioned, tomorrow is our first day with students. That is actually a remote day. Monday and Tuesday is cohort A in-person days. Thursday and Friday is cohort B in-person days. Wednesdays is a total remote day for all students. The student day is 4 hours in person with the remainder of the day remote. We are continuing to look at opportunities where we can try to increase that to a 6-hour day of in-person instruction. Some of the things we continue to look at as we strive to open tomorrow is we know food service will be a challenge for us. We're ready to go with the grab-and-go meals for all students and the availability for a grab-and-go pickup at schools as well for students who are not in person on that day. And we'll be kicking that off tomorrow. One of the challenges of a full in-person school day is around locations where students can eat. We'd likely have to serve meals in the classroom at that time. What comes with that is a additional cost in personnel around individuals who would deliver those meals and also individuals who would clean the classrooms immediately after the food service, which is a requirement of serving food in any location within the school, that it has to be immediately cleaned and sanitized. And that even goes beyond COVID because of food allergies, pest control, other issues like that that are in place. We've looked at some scenarios on that. If that is the last element to look at, we think we can do our best to move past it. We're also keenly aware of the transportation challenges. Our number one vendor of student transportation, Tewksbury Transit, local company, terrific company. It's been a great partner of ours for many years. They have been running their bus routes all this week, trying to get times down, look at double run situations because of the reduced number of students that are allowed on the bus due to COVID, which will now be a maximum of up to 23. That may require some double runs and some other reconfiguration of runs. And even as late as tonight, we have parents requesting transportation at the last minute, which is going to cause us to have some delays on some of that. What our concern is, in a full day operation, if we knew there would be delays in transportation, particularly going home at the end of the day, our youngest students are at the school the latest, and we would be concerned how long they may be at the school if transportation is delayed at the end of the day. I think we can work some of these kinks out while we're in a 4-hour in-person day and the remainder of the day remote. So we'll continue to look at that, but transportation will be an ongoing challenge. As Mr. Sullivan mentioned, our special education students, certainly we intend to work with all students and families who are on an individual education plan or a 504 plan to make sure those plans are adhered to. The DESE has come out with a designation of students referred to as high needs. High needs students would fall into a couple of categories. Those would be special education students that are spending more than 75% of their school time in a substantially separate setting. It also includes English language learners, homeless students, students in foster care. So the availability with those Grid C or high need students is to try to increase their in-person ability to attend school. So for those students who meet that criteria, particularly in special education, those students will be attending, instead of 2 days in person and 3 days remote, they will be attending 4 days in person with 1 full day remote. Since they are in substantially separate settings, we can maintain the cohort structure by doing that. And we're also looking at additional services for our English language learners and any students who are in the homeless or foster care situation. So we'll continue to examine the needs of those students where that maintains itself. As far as the Remote Learning Academy, parents have the choice in a hybrid model to either have their children attend a hybrid schedule, which again would be 2 days in person with 3 days remote, or they may choose to keep their child totally remote for the entire 5-day week. In our case, that's approximately 17% of our student body, which is about average in the Merrimack Valley for the districts that we've looked at. And for those students, we went through the process. There were a couple of DESE vendors of curriculum and partnerships you could look at. We looked at all of those, vetted all of those. And what we heard loud and clear from parents is that they preferred, if their child was in the Remote Learning Academy, that they actually be taught by Tewksbury Public Schools teachers. So we were able to look at those staff who were in the process of looking at leave requests directly in conjunction with the pandemic. And many of them we were able to accommodate to teach in the Remote Learning Academy, to teach remotely. And between that and looking at teacher schedules and crunching some numbers and looking at particularly specialists throughout the district, we have been able to staff the Remote Learning Academy with all Tewksbury Public Schools teachers. But again, tomorrow is our first big day. Everyone will be online. This will be a work in progress. We've done a significant infrastructure upgrade to technology over the past 3 years. We hope to see a significant portion of that. We've purchased a plethora of additional devices over the past 2 years. We've got just about all of those out. We have another over 2,000 devices on order coming to the district. But make no mistake, this is a significant change and shift in education for the district, for the town. There will be bumps, there will be glitches, but the staff have gone through an additional 10 days of professional development, specifically around the remote instruction portion of the hybrid in working with students. We've done a significant upgrade to the buildings in regards to cleanliness and cleaning procedures. We've invested a lot in the infrastructure to continue on with that in the HVAC system. So we're in a good spot, but this is a pandemic, and we're going to have to be able to react to change to support the needs of the community. And we're hoping that this pandemic goes in a direction where we can just get students in school more directly in contact with teachers. We're hoping that's where this goes. If we have to revert in the other direction more remotely, we do feel confident that a lot of the trainings that we've done, the collaboration with the Tewksbury Teachers Association around expectations of the teacher-student relationship in a remote environment will keep us aligned and moving forward academically, which is what we're looking for the most with our students. These are very strenuous times, but we think it is extremely important that we focus on the academic success of the students, the social emotional support they're going to need, not only in this altered state of education, but in the world we find ourselves with a pandemic and many other social issues in 2020. So this will be a challenge, but we believe we're in a good spot and we're ready to react where we need to go to in the future.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Malone and Mr. Sullivan. So with the sake of time, why don't I open up to the board and try to limit it, just to be reasonable with their time, maybe 1 or 2 questions. So why don't we open up to the board? How about Ms. Jane Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Superintendent Malone. Thank you, Chairman Sullivan, for tonight, and particularly for the tremendous amount of work that you've undertaken this last spring, and then particularly this summer with the reopening task force. I can't thank you, your staff, Superintendent Malone, and all the volunteers and teachers and folks that we've had on that committee. I know Mr. Montori has been on it. Our public health folks have been on it, and parents that have been on it have just worked so hard to find a way to get us to this place the night before we're opening. So thank you. I just really want to express that. My daughter's a senior, and so yesterday, it was great to see all the emails coming through from her teachers, and I thought that was just fantastic. It was overwhelming, but it was exciting as well to kind of start getting back into, I can almost imagine what the pencils smell like. I like that first day of school stuff. I love that, and I miss that. And I know there's a lot of anxiety, and hearing you talk, both Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Malone, provide some reassurance for me. My daughter's going back in a hybrid model. She'll be in school on Thursday, and she's excited about it and seeing her teachers again. And we're feeling a lot of that reassurance. So I think that's important to share. I thank you for your complete update. I saw the buses driving around this week, so I thought that was exciting. And I wanted to ask, I also wanted to mention, I think it's really, really wonderful that we have our teachers teaching in the Remote Learning Academy. That could work out is so reassuring and great for our kids. Wanted to know, and I've heard this kind of already, but do you have enough PPE for your staff, for your needs, all the supplies that you need? This board is always supported education in this town, and we want to make sure that you have everything that you need. So that was one of my questions. So.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Wellman. We do have what was recommended by DESE was a 3-month supply. We have a little bit of an excess of that, but what we would anticipate initially is that we might have an overuse of the PPE just because people are nervous, people are anxious, and we want them to be able to do it. We want people to feel safe. So, some of the things around hand sanitizer and other things like that, which we have been able to get. What I do get concerned a little bit is, will that supply change in the next 15, 30 days? So we've tried to, continue to order that up as far as masks, gloves, gowns, see-through masks, other kinds of elements specialized for the nurse. I think we're pretty good. Mr. Montori has continually checked on us to make sure that we have enough. It's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. We have the distribution out to the initial distribution out to the schools. By DESE guidance, students are required to bring their own mask. We're required to have them available to them if it breaks, if they soil it, if there's a last minute situation where somebody forgot it. We're there to pick up the slack and certainly supply it for all the staff. So we'll monitor that in the first 2 weeks and see what our reordering process might look like. The vendors we've dealt with have been pretty good, but we've had that spread out over the past. We were ordering that 5 months ago. So, when we start going, we're really going to have to monitor at what level it's being used so we can reorder properly.
Right. And as more schools are experiencing, or neighborhoods or towns or states are experiencing surges at different times, there'll be disruptions in the supply chain. I think that's to be expected. And then my second question, my last question is, how is your budget impacted? How are you projecting that? And you may not have that answer today, but we can talk about this going down the road and see as we start to prepare for, FY22.
So we certainly focused on FY20 money in the spring to try to prepare for FY21. We also have 2 COVID grants that we've done that have had a significant impact. We've worked with Richard Montori on some additional FEMA money and some elements like that. As I think you may know, the Chapter 70 money out of the state is the same amount that it was last year, so there was no increase on that. We had been kind of planning for that news. We were even kind of planning for less, to be honest with you, coming out of the state. So operationally in the spring, because we were remote, we were able to shift some of that money in FY20 to look ahead to expenditures. But it will definitely have an impact. One of the 2 COVID grants has a final date of December 31st. The other one goes out to September 2020. It might even go to 2022 to use it as an expenditure. That helps us on the PPE. There are some other underlying costs. We have some upgrades going into the HVAC, which will be quite expensive. And if this is going to be our new normal around the necessity for the deep cleaning supplies, the electrostatic sprayers and the foggers, and a third-party company coming in to come in and do a significant deep clean, which we've all done regularly. If that is our new normal, that will certainly have a huge impact on our budget.
All right, thank you very much. Nobody signed up to be in charge during a pandemic, and I thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Very good. How about Ms. Stronach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Chairman of the school committee, along with the school committee, for their leadership, and certainly Superintendent Malone and his entire staff for all the work. The logistics that goes into opening a school are just tremendous. And while this was a very complete update, it just scratches the surface of the amount of effort and planning that has gone into this. So please extend my thanks to your fellow members and your team. I really want to thank the community as well for all of their input into this hybrid model. I love the commitment that I've heard from the school committee and the superintendent to bring back our students full in person as safely as possible. I like the idea of the hybrid and going for the 4 hours, working towards the 6. I think that is smart, and I appreciate that. I know that you're talking about making sure that people stay home if they're not feeling well, and I'm sure that you've gone all through the symptoms. I want to encourage people, as difficult and as uncomfortable as it is, that the masks are a must and really help with the stop of the spread, because as you all know, and we all know, we're doing the best we can to mitigate the risk, but the risk factor is not zero. But we do know the benefits of bringing our students back in person, along with the mitigation, is our best approach for this. So I can't stress those 2 areas enough. And the physical distancing, especially, high school students, I think that's a really big challenge for us. And, I love the attention that you gave to the rigorous cleaning of the facilities, and the also, just the hygiene of the individuals with, I'm sure that you've put sanitizing stations all over the place and have signage everywhere. And I just want to thank you, because I know how much work this is, and I truly appreciate the efforts. And I especially appreciate the thoughtful way that you've approached this, and looking forward to helping you and supporting you as we move forward through this uncharted territory. Thank you. I have no questions.
Very good. How about Mr. Mark Kratman? Oh, you're just on mute, Mark. Sorry. You got it.
All right. Chris, Keith, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. I received numerous emails today, as probably did every parent in the community. I think you're keeping everybody updated. I think you're doing the best for our kids, and you have my full support. That's all I have for you. Tell us what you need. We'll be here for you. I know you're doing a great job, and really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Nice. Very good. How about Mr. Brian Dick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mrs. Wellman, Ms. Stronach summed up the thank yous, so I won't go and repeat, but Superintendent Malone and Chairman Sullivan, thanks for being here tonight. You already hit a couple of my questions around busing, remote learning academy. I guess one of my questions, and I just know this from other districts aren't doing this. I just know it might have been already communicated, Mr. Malone. Are we taking temperatures each day as kids come in? And if there is a student or a teacher that does come down with some symptoms, how do we handle that in a short response? I'm sure you've gone through this communication-wise, but love to hear it from you directly.
No, great point, Mr. Dick. Thank you. DESE came out pretty early on in their guidance and did not recommend daily temperature checks for students because of the false reading and other elements that go along with that. What we've pushed out to parents and students is a self-screening model where they should be checking themselves every day before they come in. If you're not feeling well, if you think you might have a fever, don't come in. In the hybrid model, I think what we have the benefit of is a student doesn't necessarily have to be absent that day if they, for some reason, feel symptomatic, because what they can do is hop on the remote portion of the learning day. Therefore, they don't have to get themselves caught in a scenario where if I don't come in, I'm absent or I'm going to miss the instruction. So it'll be a challenge with some students. I think we've been trying to reach the parents very specifically on that. But as Ms. Stronach said, once you get up to the high school level, we'll have to do some more work with students. With staffing, it's the same model. Our staff have been excellent. We have had staff returned for 12 work days, of which staff have been excellent about coordinating directly with our school nurses if they feel they have an issue before they come to work. We've had a few issues where people have stayed home, they felt symptomatic, they went to their doctor, they got tested, and everything was fine. We had to deal with a few days where they weren't in, and when students are in, we'll have to work with a substitute or do some things, but I think we've established a pretty good pattern with that. Unfortunately, we've had our first positive case in the district, which was a staff member in a training situation. She did the right thing. She notified the nurse. She followed the right protocols. We worked with Department of Public Health, Susan Sawyer and Irvy. They worked directly with us. We did contact tracing. We did all the things that we're required to do. Certainly, that's going to be a higher level of complication once we have students in the building. But if we follow the guidelines that we've set up with wearing appropriate PPE, washing hands regularly, using hand sanitizer when that's not available, and maintaining the 6-foot distance, if we do that effectively, that will predominantly rule out close contacts in any situation that we run into. So it's a huge cultural shift for everyone. Our teachers want to be with kids. They want to work with kids. They feel they do a better job with the closer proximity they have to students. So this will be a challenge for all of us to try to get used to this appropriate distancing, to try to follow all those protocols. But the ones we have put in place have worked well. But again, this will be a challenge once students are back in the buildings. So we've messaged out quite a bit, but they are kids. So we'll have to do our best to certainly work with them, make sure they're following the protocols, and make sure if we do have a positive case, we fully anticipate that we will. And when we do, just follow the guidelines, work with our local Board of Health, work with DESE, has a new notification line that if you do have a positive case in your district, to notify them. So we will work through those. We're prepared for that, and we're hopeful that if everyone follows the protocols, it will have a minimal impact on the education.
Yep, that's great. Very professional response. Calming and reassurance is what I'm hearing. You know, you have my support, 110%. That first COVID case, success, if you will, you know, it wasn't a success, but, you know, you guys handled it real well. I thought the communication was fantastic through all the different channels. Two other quick questions. And I know this is probably a real open-ended question, but like the school calendar, when you talk about vacation time and end of school year, I know that that's probably not really, that's set. I know the school committee sets that along through the year, Chairman Sullivan, but maybe, is there any big gotchas in that calendar other than what we're talking about? You know what I mean? Like for vacation time, or is that being cut short, or is that, you know what I mean?
Right. So the DESE guidance around the 10 days of professional development came off the 180-day requirement. So that brings the student days from 180 in this school year down to 170. The vacation times and other things will remain the same. We've tried to balance out that 10-day shift in trying to manage a calendar with, we were just trying to work through PSATs and SATs today. There'll be many of these things that are traditionally scheduled every year that we're going to have to make some adjustments to. However, if we went back to prior to what the calendar looked like before the 10 days were given to us by DESE, the end date looks fairly the same. What we're hoping, and I think what DESE is considering at this point, is if we had a snow day, or if we had a scenario where maybe we had a COVID situation in one building or one element, we'll be able to move those students or the entire district to a quote remote day for the day. Since we have the capability, we have the technology, we firmly believe we have the planning for instruction. We're about to see on the execution of the instruction, but we have the planning for the instruction. And will that help us manage some of those pieces? We're also likely going to have technology glitches. Every district will, we will. There will be gaps in that, and we don't anticipate that students either in the remote learning academy or on a full remote day as part of the hybrid are going to be glued to a laptop for the entire 6-hour student day. We have a high expectation that there'll be a significant amount of check-ins live with teachers, some significant direct instruction, but also opportunities for students to do group work, project-based lessons, other elements around their home, so that particularly at the younger ages, they're not glued to a computer screen for the entire 6 hours.
Yep, and it's good to hear a little bit of normalcy around your schedule. Your thoughts, your professional thoughts on that, and again, just appreciate those responses. And my last question, just to kind of from your professional opinion, I know we're following DESE's recommendations pretty much along the board, and then it's morphing into other things. But Tewksbury in general, do you find that most districts are doing the hybrid model throughout the Commonwealth, or? I mean, we're not. I mean, what's your professional thought on that?
Right. So the number I've heard from DESE was approximately 65% of the districts in the state are doing a hybrid. Most of the districts in the Merrimack Valley are doing a hybrid. Some are trying to do a full day hybrid. I've just checked in with one district today to see how their elements were going, what they're looking at. I think what we have to be conscious of is the statewide metric which is a color-coded metric on the Department of Public Health website that really guides whether a district should be in a, quote, hybrid model, in a remote learning model, or in an all-in-person. If we follow that element, we can anticipate, as has happened in districts around us, that they may be, including us, fall into a red zone according to the state level metric. And doesn't mean they have to, but the guidance would tell them they should be going to a total remote learning at that time. That metric is looked at, is a combination of an average of 2 weeks of data. What DESE guidance is saying is you should really take a 3-week look before you make a full change as a district in a model. So that's some data we're going to be looking at. Some of our neighbors have been right on the cusp of that. Some of them have gone into the red, and we're working with them, and we'll see how they respond to that. I don't doubt if we don't have resolution to this pandemic, that we as a district could float in and out of different sections, and we'll have to be able to react to that. And we'll have to be able to keep the community informed of that. I think if Tewksbury went, quote, in the red, it doesn't necessarily mean the schools would have to make a move into remote. What we would ask that the task force, and certainly the town manager, Board of Health, school committee, ourselves, the unions, get together, look at where those case numbers may be, and make a determination if the schools can safely continue operating in a hybrid model, or we have to move. The metric they look at the state level is around the number of 8 per 100,000 people. And looking at that metric and applying that to Tewksbury's population, there is a statewide metric around the positive test rate, which right now has been, I haven't seen today's, but has been under 1. But if that gets up in the 5 area, that as a statewide metric, what impact that may have for us and what decisions we might want to make. But this will be a ever bouncing ball that we have to keep our eye on, and keep a close eye on the metrics and the data to inform us about what is the safest way to operate on any given day in Tewksbury.
Well, awesome. Thanks. I'm going to yield my time, but I just wanted to say again, thank you. As we feel that we have the best town manager, I think we've got the best superintendent at the helm. And I did appreciate the school committee members that were trying to push to go back full time. I know that's very difficult, and I think everybody wished that was the case. But this guy right here sitting in this office, if there's any way to get back full time, I'm 100% in favor of that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me some time to ask some questions. Thank you.
Good. And just super quick here. There was a few note-outs about communication, like today. I can tell you the communication has been unbelievable, ongoing as a parent. So the communication from Mr. Malone and the school committee, we get it twice. We get it from Mr. Martori as well, but the communication has been nonstop, and that's not easy to communicate those letters and draft those letters. So that's been outstanding. And last but not least, Mr. Malone, you said about potential glitches. I like to call them gremlins. So 100% with you. You turn on the TV, you see some of the school counties panicking. Listen, we're going to have issues. It's how we address them in a timely fashion that's going to separate us. So totally understand about the technology. We're putting everything to the test. So if we have glitches, we just deal with them and we go from there. I'm not trying to trivialize it, but I think that's a big call out since we're putting everything to the test. That's all.
Great.
All right, I can't thank you guys enough again. Good luck for tomorrow, and we're here. If you need any support whatsoever, you guys know where we're at. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
All righty.
Appreciate it.
That was very good, very informative. All right, that brings us to the next section is residents. Residents, do we have any residents, Brian?
Not at the moment, Mr. Chairman, but we are about a minute behind as usual.
That's okay. Then we'll give it a minute for our residents for sure. Just let us know. Maybe what we'll do is let's jump into new business. And like I said, if a resident calls, we'll just jump to the resident. So the first order of new business is special town meeting, October 6, 2019, the signature page. Do we have that right? 2019?
Mr. Chairman, that should be 2020.
Okay. So we'll correct that. And Mr. Montori, just keep me honest here. This one's just simple, just a simple vote.
Just a simple vote to approve signing the warrant, and if you can come in sometime over the next couple of days to sign it, we intend to post on Friday.
Okay, so we'll take care of the Scribner error. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the signatures of the special town meeting, October 6, 2020.
Second for discussion.
I have a motion, and I have a second roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
I think there was second by discussion, so would we bring that up at this time?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Yep, please.
Mrs. Wellman? Mrs. Wellman?
Thank you. Thank you. I just wondered if we're going to review the warrant before we sign it. Because we haven't reviewed this warrant. Right?
Right.
Go ahead, Mr. Montori. I think it's on. We're gonna do it during our next meeting, September 29th. Go ahead, Mr. Montori.
Historically, what has happened, the warrant gets signed and posted. Because we have to get it posted and mailed, it's tough to get it reviewed beforehand, but
Yeah.
really it's at the pleasure of the board. If you want to meet beforehand, before you post it, we can schedule a meeting in a few days. There's only 6 articles. Whatever you want to do. Historically, we haven't.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Just bear with me here. So, Mr. Montori, let's say we did approve and we have the meeting on the 29th to review. What are our options at that point? Is it because it went out? I mean, could we ever make modifications prior to the October 6th meeting?
You can always amend articles. You could table articles, not approve articles. So you have a variety of options. Again, if you wanted to meet sometime this week to go over it, again, it's only 6 articles. We can do that. I could, if the board would like, I could go through the articles tonight with you quickly, just to give you an idea of what they are. I think each of you have a copy of the warrant. It's up to however you want to do it, Mr. Chairman.
What's the pleasure of the board? I'm comfortable. I mean, I was comfortable. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman? Could I make a comment?
Please.
Thank you so much. First of all, I completely think that is an excellent question, and it's good for people that are listening because they're like, wait a minute, did they do the warrant and I missed it? And just from a historical standpoint, I'd just like to give a little bit of context. And I think that Mark will attest to this because I think he was on the board at the time. This is actually what started the idea of Mr. Montori's summary page. And because we were putting this out and having it to go to print, it does need our signatures on it to get it to the printer. And so we were putting the cart before the horse a little bit. And then we would go in and do the warrants. If there were changes or Scribner's errors, they would get posted on that summary that we all do after. That gets put out at town meeting and also gets published on our website. So that's another avenue for us to do this. I have reviewed the warrant that was sent to me electronically. I am comfortable, but I would defer to the rest of the group. But I'm comfortable with the signature. I do think we have mechanisms in place, and I especially think that summary has really evolved over the years to a very concise document that allows us some flexibility if needed. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. How about from the rest? How about from the? I'm totally comfortable That's a good call up by Ms. Wellman. I'm totally comfortable to postpone it. We need 48 hours. Mr. Montour, if we did pull something together, let's say 48 hours on Friday, would that give us enough time to mail out for mail outs?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
Okay. Like you said, it's not a heck of a lot. I don't want to pull any, we're not pulling any fast ones on the residents, so that's a good call out. Maybe we just take a step back.
I don't think it's pulling a fast one, just going ahead with the signature page. But I've thought that with 6 articles, we would review it. I think it's incumbent upon us to have that conversation in public. I've reviewed it. I'm comfortable with everything on it. That's not the issue at all. But it's important to respect it because the planning board's talking about it. The finance committee's talking about it. We haven't talked about it yet. And that's the genesis of my question. That's really the only reason that's the genesis. We're the ones putting it forward to the public. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to talk about it. All of the articles are submitted by the town manager. So none of them are from the Board of Selectmen. And we can talk about it more in detail, certainly on the 29th. I have no issue with any of that at all. I do think, and I don't really want to have another meeting this week and try to then, rush it in. It's a pretty high level document. Maybe just a high level review from the town manager for 5 minutes would do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, Mr. Chairman, if Brian Dorrington allows, I could pull up the warrant and share it on the screen and talk about it, if that's okay.
How about before that, any comments from Mr. Brian Dick or Mr. Mark Kratman?
I'd like to, I guess, with Mrs. Wellman's question, it's a good question. I understand Mrs. Stronach as well, been on the board, but I think I've read the warrant. I'm comfortable too. I think a quick discussion that maybe our town manager could do right now. I think that would probably get what we have to do forward. So I'd like to do that now if you could, instead of doing another meeting.
Okay, how about Mr. Kratman? Good.
Fine. I was fine with the way we've historically done it. Town meeting is all discussed at the town meeting. I have no problem going over the questions. I think everybody has a copy of it. But if we'd like a quick synopsis of it, of the town manager to give us a brief update on it, I have no problem with that either. So.
Okay, so Ms. Montour, you can take the ball. Go ahead, Ms. Coleman.
I just want to say I appreciated that. Thank you.
Yeah, no sweat. Mr. Montori, are we going to do an vote for adoption or not? I thought we were going to do that maybe on the 29th. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm just going to pull this up. We can do this. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So this is the warrant as it stands right now for a special town meeting. The first article is transferring funds within the FY21 budget from funds that we feel that we know have a surplus. The amount is $525,442 coming from principal maturing debt. The reason why we have a surplus in this account is because we are going to delay the DPW school maintenance facility. We had set aside approximately $1.3 million for debt service. Because we're going to delay that project, we have available funds to address a shortfall. The shortfall we'll have this year because of reduced local receipts, and the remaining after that will go help fund these budgets. Quickly, the items in here are all, for the most part, one-time expenditures. Sick leave buyback for employees who are going to be retiring. The biggest here is the fire chief has accelerated his retirement up 1 year. So that was unanticipated, as well as some other public safety offices. Under town manager professional services, we're funding $20,000 to assist the North Intrahan reuse committee to bring on a professional to help plan land use for those parcels. Plus, we need funding for a new service to archive our social media. The next items, town clerk operating, elections, line items within the elections. All of these items are being asked for increases because we saw a major increase in operations for the primary because of mail-in voting, early voting. The cost of the election just for the primary exceeded what we projected. We know we're going to need more for the upcoming presidential election, so we want to fund the elections budget and the town clerk's budget properly. We actually may add more money to this area by the time we post on Friday, because we found out today that we've spent close to $9,000 mailing out ballots for the primary. And we only have about $13,000 in that budget for our overall town use. Police capital outlay. This was something that happened over the summer. The police department lost their air conditioning several times over the summer, and they're in need of a new chiller. So this will purchase a new chiller for them. Under facilities and grounds, $50,000 will be used to purchase a new leaf box and trailer for the department to maintain town buildings. And we're also funding the upgrade of the one of the large baseball fields down at the at Livingston Field, as well as extend irrigation to the outfields of both of those fields. The regular facilities and grounds repairs and maintenance, I just added additional funds there just for the unknown over the next year in regard to COVID for things that may not be reimbursable. School and town unemployment, we're going to need additional funds. School, especially based on the cost that we've seen over the last few months, the potential of positions being laid off over the next year. Streetlights, we wanted to start paying down the short-term borrowing that we have in place for the conversion of streetlights in town to LED lighting. We're going to pay for the debt service through a reduction in our energy costs within that budget, but this money will help pay down that debt sooner than we planned, which was approximately 5 years. So that's a review of Article 1. Article 2, because we're going to have a reduction in our revenue this in FY21, mainly in the area of motor vehicle excise, hotel motel tax, and meals tax. We needed to reduce the budget to help offset that reduction in revenue. And that reduction in the budget is coming within the interest for maturing debt and principal for maturing debt. Again, because we're delaying the DPW school maintenance facility. And I want to stress that we're delaying this project. The hope is that we have a better understanding of our revenues going into FY22, and we can at least start discussing the possibility of phasing that project in FY22. Article 3 is an article we've seen in the past on special town meetings for unpaid bills. This is a larger than normal unpaid bill article that we're going to raise and appropriate funds to pay these bills. The first is Middlesex Retirement for $9,265 to pay for the assessment of retirement assessments for employees who have been deployed within the military. We're responsible for their retirement assessment. We have an unpaid bill from Senior Town Council that came in higher than we anticipated when we ended the fiscal year. Unemployment invoices for March, April, May, and June came in high when we originally got them. We contested the bills. We got an updated bill in July that went from that was reduced from $116,000 down to approximately $58,000. As you know, because of the number of unemployment claims throughout the country, there were many fraudulent claims. We had that happen to us. We challenged those claims, and we ended up having our bills reduced, but we didn't get that bill until July. That's mostly for the schools, but again, it's much less than the bills we saw earlier. National Grid, the June bill just didn't come in till late, so that needs to be funded. That's for the town hall, Center Fire Station, and the annex. We forgot to pay the next two bills. One was for the rental of the stage in June for June's town meeting. Just got by us, and the printing of the annual report and typesetting of the annual report. Article 4 is to transfer from free cash $850,000 for sidewalks within the community. The primary project within this funding is a sidewalk for Shawshene Street. The project will be for the entire street from Main Street to East Street. This project will cost more than $850,000. It's probably going to cost somewhere around $1.1 to $1.3 million. We intend to use current funding we have within the sidewalk budget, as well as Chapter 90 money to supplement the additional costs. Article 5 will transfer remaining free cash into the stabilization fund. Our free cash has not been certified yet. I expect it to be certified within the next couple of days, and it should be approximately $3 million to $3.1 million. Then Article 6 looks to take the following parcels of land that the Open Space and Recreation Commission has identified and permanently protect those parcels under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. And here's the list of the parcels. And that's the warrant. I didn't mean to go through that quickly, but that's they're pretty straightforward.
Questions from the board, and I'd like to carry this over to September 29th, our next meeting as well. I'm sure we'll have some questions, and especially around the sidewalk one. I know right now, if we're watching the planning board meetings, we're asking the planning board folks to take some of that money for the Shawshene sidewalks as well. So I think next meeting, I'd like to talk about that one. I think some other board members might as well. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Montori. So at this point, do we want to revisit that motion for the signature?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Mark Ratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it brings us to boards and committees. So just for the residents, we do have a number, just only a handful of spots open. So what I'd like to do now is just work with the board and see if there's any nominations. I'm just going to bring it up quickly. Bear with me here. And maybe we'll take them one at a time. Like I said, there's only a handful of committees, and I think we can make short work of this. So let me bring up the first opening. And this one is on the Council on Aging. And I believe there's only one applicant. Okay, so the Council on Aging, there's one selectman appointee, terms for 1 year, and the term started on June 30, 2020 to June 30, 2021. Looks like we have Sandra Creamer. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman, for Sandra Creamer to be the Board of Selectmen appointee to the Council on Aging.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that for discussion.
Please.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Bob McGinnis, who was in that position previously. He served with distinction, and I'm sure that Ms. Kramer will do an excellent job as well. Just wanted to give him a big shout out for all his work. I appreciate it. All of the members of the Council on Aging, but since he is leaving, I just want to say that gratitude.
Call it. I was going to do it after. Bob's a great guy, and he'll be missed 100%. So great call out. Okay, so I have a motion. I have a second. So let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye. Aye.
Mark Chapman.
Aye.
Miss Jane Wellman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Okay, it brings us to the Economic Development Committee. We have one opening, the same deal here. The term expiration date is 6/30/2021, and we have one member. We have a vacancy right now of one, so we have three candidates. And just like we always do this, I try to look at all the candidates, which ones they apply to, and I can say we do know some of these folks. Some folks, they have a nice little resume, so when they do like when they submit their application, it's very thorough. So I was impressed by a number of these and some of the folks I don't know. So do we have any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I would nominate Jennifer Balch-Kenny for the Economic Development Committee. Worked with her on the Beautification Committee for a while. She's very dedicated. Great person.
Second.
Very good.
Background.
I have a motion, I have a second, so it's going to have a roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Aye. Did you call me?
Yep, no, Ms. Wellman, thank you.
It's going in now.
The chair votes aye as well. Okay, unanimous. All right, next. We do have one member, maybe just to advertise it, for the Elementary School Building Committee. And Ms. Stronach, I know you serve on that committee. Do we have so we do have one vacancy?
So we do have a vacancy, Mr. Chairman, but we actually moved somebody from the planning board onto this committee. So we are currently at 11. So I would vote that we do not, I would recommend that we do not fill this position at the current time because that would bring us to 12.
Easy enough. All right, on to the next. So the next is yep, thank you for the update. How about for the Massachusetts Cultural Council? Looks like we have vacancy. We have 8. Looking here, looks like we have 8 vacancies, correct?
Correct.
And we have, okay with that, okay. And we have, I know that's a large one, and I know they only meet maybe a handful of times a year, if that, but we have 4 folks, 4 residents that were interested, so I think this is an easy one.
Yes,
Do I have a
Mr.
motion?
Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I have 3 of the names, so maybe you could add the 4th, but Terry Musgrave, nominate her to the Mass Cultural Council. Mita Narayan and Lisa Wilson. Those are the 3 candidates that I see in my packet. I don't know if there's a 4th candidate.
And I have Robert T.
Ayer.
Okay, I'll nominate Robert T. Ayer as well. So it's 4 members, 4 applicants. I make a motion to nominate them to those 4 of those 8 positions vacant.
Second.
The expiration date there is 6/30/2023. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right, we're going to move down to the Tewksbury Beautification Committee. We have 1 open vacancy, and we have one resident that applied. Again, Robert T. Ayer. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Robert T. Ayer to the Beautification Committee until June 21, June 31st, June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Do I have a second? A motion second by Mr. Brian Dick. Roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Next one here is the Taxation Aid Committee. I'll give an update at the end of the Selectmen meeting here. We have one vacancy, and we have two nominations. I think Jennifer was appointed to the earlier one, correct, to the Economic Development Committee?
She was.
Okay, so do I have a nomination for Michael?
I'll make a motion to nominate Michael John Farnham to the Taxation Aid Committee.
I'll
Actually,
second
I'm going to, okay, just a second for discussion. I'm going to throw you a little curveball here. The Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael has also applied with that. I was very impressed with his resume, with his application. So we're not going to get rocking and rolling for the Taxation Aid Committee just for a little bit because of revenues. I can talk about that a little bit later. So what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking the Zoning Board of Appeals is probably, that's only a year term. Yeah, I think we're going to get a bigger bang for our buck, so to speak. So I would look for a motion there if the board agrees.
Yeah, I'll change that motion and make a motion for Michael John Farnham to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second by Ms. Wellman. Roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Who was that? Mr. Kratman? There's an aye. Okay.
Aye.
How about Ms. Stronach? Thank you,
Aye.
Mike. And Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Okay. Very good. I think that brings us, I think that's all right now for boards and committees for now.
Mr.
So,
Kelly?
Mr. Montori,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
did we didn't appoint anybody to Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee?
Oh, did I skip it?
It's right under the Cultural Council. So I think we all missed it.
All right, thanks for keeping me honest. Let me just bounce back up there. Okay, good call out, Ms. Wellman. Okay, so we have the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee. We have two vacancies, and we have one, two, three, four, five in my pamphlet, five applicants. I think we appointed Robert to a committee, so it'd bring us down to four applicants.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for to at least one of those appointees to be Tom Branchow.
Thank you.
I'd
I'll
second that. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
I
excellent.
saw the okay, very good. So I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Mark Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. So one more applicant for Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Peter Chase for this committee. He's a lifelong, he has some he's a woodland explorer, and I think that kind of fits this plan.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
And I said, like I said earlier, all the applicants were very impressive across the board. So
It's really hard to pick.
It is. This one's really hard. And Mr. Chase also has the Tewksbury Wildlife page on social media, and it's really popular. And he posts a lot of great stuff. It's very good in the community. I think he would be a good member of that board as well.
just like all the boards, you can be a member or you can participate every single meeting. You know, I always say you don't have to be a member to be a member, but okay. So I have a motion and I have a second. So roll call vote. Mr. Brian Dick.
Aye.
Mr. Kratman.
Aye.
Ms. Stronach.
Aye.
Ms. Wellman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Ms. Wellman, any more? Are we good?
Oh, you're perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. Good catch. Okay, cool. All right, Mr. Montori, it brings us down to the town manager report. So this one here, Mr. Montori, the first one here is water and sewer rates. And the only reason why I wanted to bring it on the agenda is we all got a lot of phone calls. A lot of bills were high. Usage was up, and I know you're going to talk about that. And we also had a lot of issues with like leaky pipes and running toilets. And so maybe we can talk about the potential abatement process if a resident has a leaky toilet, then all of a sudden they get a bill from $600 and it's $3,000. Because we know that happened, and so I just want to talk about the rates, how they haven't changed, but really talk about the usage, and because we're all seems like we're 80% residential, all our families are home, and we're consuming a lot more water. But you want to just touch upon kind of at a high level the water and sewer rates and kind of what your findings have been over the last 6 months.
Sure. So, as I think I've been telling the board since June, we have seen a record high usage of our of water in town. As we know, the state has been in a drought. Many communities have implemented water bans, some extremely strict water bans, but we did not need to, and we did not put any type of water bans or water conservation measures in place. So for the months of, which was really the billing period timeframe, for the months of April, May, June, July, and August, we saw an increase in water being pumped from the plant compared to last year. We saw an increase of 68 million gallons. In June alone, we had pumped from the water treatment plant 117 million gallons compared to 2019 when we only pumped 77 million gallons. That was the highest amount we pumped in the month of June in over 10 years. In July, we pumped 110 million gallons compared to the previous year when we pumped 97. In August, we pumped 104 million gallons compared to the previous year when we pumped 95. So as you can see, just those 3 months alone were significant. But that's just what we pumped out of the plant. That's for commercial, residential, for our municipal buildings, that include any water that gets lost in the system, which every community has. Then I went and looked at just the billing amount for residential. And when I looked at what was pumped for billing purposes, and I compared FY20 to FY19, the amount we billed was 47.9 million gallons more in water than the previous year. We billed $668,000 more than we did the previous year. There were 761 less customers in the bottom tier of our water rates than there were from the previous year. So that means people who are normally in the 0 to 12 pushed into the 12 to 24 and higher, which are higher rates. So our rate structure did not change from the previous year. Our rate structure for water has not changed in 2 years. So it wasn't a matter of the board or the town or anybody raising rates. People simply used much more water. And it was interesting because going into this billing cycle, we were wondering what it was going to be like with usage during COVID. And between people being home and the drought, we just saw a significant amount of residential use. Our users, our accounts that had second meters, these are people who use just for irrigation, that doubled from the previous year. We went from approximately 9 million to a little over 18 million gallons of water. But what was interesting, we saw about a 10 million or an 8 to 9 million gallon decrease in commercial because no one was working. Everyone's working from home. So the water just transferred into the residential side. So again, it's all about usage. It's not an issue where we pump so much water we're going to need to increase rates. That's not the case at all. We're just it's just a higher billing period for this cycle. We'll see how the next cycle goes, and then the third one going over the winter, where we usually start to see a decrease in usage from now until December, and then December till April. So And I talk about this every year when we project rates. You can't look at the previous year's usage and think that's what you're going to use again. Every year is different. You need to see if it was a wet year or a dry year. That determines usage. So we try to really pick a year that is more normal than most and project our rates out. But this was simply a situation where people used more water. Anybody that's called the office that we've talked to, we look at their usage from the previous year, and they can't believe they used that much more water, but they did. And that's simply what it is. Now, in regard to people who have had leaks, if someone had a leak through a leaky toilet or something, they can notify us to review the situation to make sure there wasn't an issue with the meter. Most times there's not much we can do with it, but we take every case on its own and decide what factors are involved. But if anybody has a high bill because of a leak, they can notify myself or the DPW. We'll look at it and make a determination. But I just can't say across the board we're going to decrease everybody's bill that had a leak. We just look at each one individually on a case-by-case basis. We have been looking into a software over the past couple of years that will allow residents to monitor their usage, receive alerts if they have an abnormal usage for a period of time that may indicate a leak. But we haven't found a software yet that works well enough with Munis for our billing, but we're still looking into it. We're also looking into a process internally where we can flag high usage for particular accounts and notify people to maybe check whether they have a leak or not, but we're still trying to figure out what that system could be. So I don't know if that covers everything, Mr. Chairman.
It did for me. Any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, while we're on the subject, can we bring another section topic on it?
Please.
I know there was an issue recently with water pressure in North Tewksbury, and I know there was some concerns about the coloration, and I know there was some things that were sent out to the town. Can we give an update on that? Because I know a lot of people have been concerned about water pressures to their homes. Can we give an update on that while we're at it?
Sure. That's actually, thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. I forgot to address that. So we had a couple of things going on this past year. We did have a fair amount of brown water in our cast iron pipes throughout the town, and that had to do with the amount of water being used in the community. As more water was being pumped through the system, it stirred up a lot of the sediments, which caused brown water sometime in the June, July timeframe, and that's what people saw during the early parts of the summer. And that started to get better as usage started to decrease. But then we had an issue over the past week where there was an oil spill or gas spill on one of the bridges in Lowell, which contaminated the Merrimack River. We needed to shut down our plants in order for the spill to pass by our intake. At the time, we believed we had plenty of water in our tanks because when our tanks are full, it can get us through a couple of days of water usage based on our demand. But what we found out was that day, someone was working at one of our tanks and knocked out our telemetry, our SCADA system. So we did not have a good understanding of how much water was actually in the tank, but so the tank was drained. In order to fill that tank, we needed to really start pumping heavily into the system. Because the tank was low, it hurt pressure in the higher elevations in the community. That's why, as Mark mentioned, there was pressure issues in parts of the community. So it took us about 24 hours to get the tank back to where it needed to be and to allow pressure to get back to where it needed to be. And then if you talk to the residents that had issues with pressure, Most of the pressure problems took place early in the morning, but as the day progressed and the tank was being filled, they saw, small increments of improvements in their water pressure. And then lastly, we do have a certain part of town, I believe, in the Shawshene Street area, where there are some mornings that there is low pressure in the system, but we're not sure why. It just happens for a brief period of time, and then the pressure returns to normal. We're not sure it's because of the water work that we've done on Main Street and switching over to the new water line on Main Street. We're not sure if someone's opening a hydrant and causing a problem in the mornings that way. But we have seen a very isolated area of town have water pressure problems early in the morning, and we've been investigating that. I think that, Mark, does that cover everything?
I know we get calls, and I've seen some different posts and concerns, so thank you for updating.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, can we move on?
Please.
New fire station, just wanted to give a quick update on that. For those of you who've driven by the site, you'll see a big difference in the site itself. We opened bids in the project, and we awarded the contract to GNR Construction, who started working on the new center fire station. The site has been cleared, it's being graded. Construction fencing has gone up. They'll be mobilizing trailers over the next week, starting to see delivery of some material. They're doing site utility work over the next few weeks, excavating for retaining walls and foundations. So I think you can see from driving by the site or coming over to the town common side and looking over that the site is much different than when we originally were talking about this project. So we're seeing good progress on that site. The project, once we finalized the bids with GNR Construction, the project came in $899,000 under budget. The bid and cost for GNR Construction is $12.2 million, which again was less than we estimated. This allowed us not to have to borrow the $2.5 million that we approved at town meeting last year. If you remember, we approved that just as a contingency, and we said we wouldn't borrow it unless we needed to, and we don't need to based on the pricing that we received. So that project's underway. It's a 14-month project, and we hope that they can make good progress over the next few months and get the building in a position where they can work inside during the winter. Any questions on that?
Great update, especially about the savings.
And then the last item is the Regional Emergency Communications Center. That facility went live a little over a week ago. And when I mean by live, it went live for Tewksbury emergency calls and Dracut 911 calls. We have not fully switched over to Dracut Police and Fire yet. We may be in a position soon to go over to switch over to Dracut Fire, but we have a little bit more work to do for Dracut Police. All of the dispatchers that we need have been hired. We're fortunate enough that all but 2 come with dispatching experience. We were fortunate enough to get 3 dispatchers from another community and bring them over here. And then that meant we only needed to fully train 2 dispatchers for the regional communications facility. We've hired our part-time dispatchers, so we're just getting everyone familiarized with the new equipment. It's a very sophisticated system that even our own dispatchers need to learn, and that's going to take a few weeks. But everyone's in, they're learning. You want to get down there and take a tour. let me know. But things are progressing along pretty well down there. As far as construction, we still have punch list issues we're working out with the contractor. It hasn't been an easy closeout of this project, but we have a meeting there Friday to deal with some issues and hopefully get the contractor complete and off-site soon. And that's it.
Questions from the board?
Nope, that's great.
Thank you, Mr. Montori. Great updates. All right, it brings us to, we do not have any minutes to approve. How about board member reports? Why don't we start with Mr. Brian Dick?
What's this week? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing to report.
Okay. Mr. Mark Kratman?
I have no reports. My meetings will be at the end of the month, so I'll have something at the next meeting, but thank you.
How about Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. I have a couple of updates. Beautification Committee met for the first time tonight, right before this meeting, since January, actually. So it was great to see folks again. There's a tentative plan for cleanup day on October 3rd. That's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. pending the town manager's approval. He'll need to look at what's available with staff and other precautions vis-a-vis COVID. So that's not firm yet, but that was the talk tonight. We'll have more on that September 29. And congratulations to Paige Impink, who remains the chair of that committee. I also have a NIMCOG meeting tomorrow night. Our last one in August was canceled. On August 26th, I spoke with the district local technical assistance team there about some projects that are affecting Tewksbury, including what's going on with the Tewksbury Rail Trail project and some other transportation issues. And then another good piece of news, the Greater Lowell Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy was approved by the Economic Development Administration on September 2nd. That was a 5-year plan. Some folks may remember there was a meeting at the library in January that folks went to. So that is a regional economic development plan that's been approved. And I don't know if the town manager's put it up on the website yet, but that's going to go up soon if it's not already up. So we'll be meeting tomorrow night. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know. And then I wanted to ask the chair if a future agenda item can be staffing the new bylaw committee we set up. We didn't appoint anybody to it, and we can add that to the September 29 agenda. That would be great.
Great call out. I've got some pings from residents. Other residents, they want to put their applications in for that particular committee. So that's good that we already have some interest in that committee. So good call out.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Very good. How about Ms. Stronach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick update on the elementary building committee. I do want to give a shout out to the vice chair, Jamie Cutlass. I was unable to attend the meeting on Thursday, but he did the meeting in my stead. The project is on time so far. It's well underway. For those of you who've driven by the site, there's lots of work going on. It's very exciting. Similar to the fire department, it is now a very visible project in town. The next meeting will be on October 8th. And I do want to note that this meeting is now being moved back to 6 p.m. While during COVID and kind of while we were in summer mode, we were doing 4:30. Now with school opening up, we are moving to 6 p.m. on October 8th. And I'd just like to say again, I really appreciate all the work being done by everyone across the town, all of our employees during this crazy time. And I just keep hearing great stories about things that are happening in this town. And under the town manager's leadership, along with his team and the superintendent and all the teachers and everybody, I see a lot of things that are going on in other places, and I am happy to see the progress that we're making here. Every time I go into town hall, I'm amazed at how great that place looks, and looking forward to opening the library next at some point and just continuing to reopen in a safe manner. And that doesn't happen without a lot of work from a lot of people and a lot of dedication by our residents to do the right thing. So I just can't say that enough. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to pontificate for a minute.
Good stuff, good stuff. And I don't have anything on my end, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last roll call vote tonight, I promise. So Mr. Brian Dick,
Aye.
Mr. Mark Kratman,
Aye.
Ms. Stronach,
Aye.
Ms. Wellman,
Aye.
chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.